How does Berkeley, if Berkeley thinks that there is no world as it is in itself, that everything is of the nature of spirits or ideas or experience, how does he account for the success of modern science? I mean, how can there be a science if there's no matter?
He thought, in a way, he could account for it better than Locke could, because whereas Locke was left with this worry about things like the inverse square law being just sort of brute fact, for Berkeley, all laws are just brute facts, and they are, in fact, they represent the order in which God affects us with ideas, and the sequence of ideas is what constitutes the laws of nature. And he had his own story, explanation of this sequence. This is his analogy is with language. God is, so to speak, informing us of what is to come, in a way, so that if I see a fire, then I know that if I stretch out my hand, I'll get burned. And this is useful knowledge. And unless the ideas which God instills in us unless they were in this sort of order, then they would be useless to us. I mean, so he has this, it's a sort of, in fact, he constructs an argument for God's existence out of all this, of course.
In fact, so one could sum up Berkeley's view of total reality like this. There's an infinite spirit, which is God. There's a whole number of finite spirits, which is us. And we are somehow in communication with God via our experience. That what we take to be our whole experience of the world is, in this rather poetic metaphor, God's language to us. God is talking to us.
Yes.
And science, all the regularities in the world, all the scientific laws, all the equations of mathematics that are built into our experience are, so to speak, the grammar and the syntax of God's language. They are the structure of the divine communication to human minds.
There's no need.
It's a magnificent idea.
There's no need to postulate matter at all. It doesn't do any work.
If all reality is mental, in Berkeley's view, how is it that I can't choose what I see? I mean, if I close my eyes and open them again, I can't choose to see Charlie Chaplin sitting on that sofa. I can't choose to see nobody sitting on the sofa. There you are, Michael Ayers. Now, anyone else would say, Locke would say, common sense would say, well, yes, that's because Michael Ayers is there independently of being perceived.
Yes.
Berkeley can't say that. At least he can't say that about all the other kinds of material objects in the universe. How does he explain it?
In the end, he comes out with a notion which I think was there in his earlier writing, but is not expressed very clearly, that there is something that exists independently of you, and that is an idea in God's mind. And there is at least an intention of God to produce appropriate ideas in your mind when you open your eyes. Right? So the real object is really explained in terms of both of the orderliness, the order of your ideas, and the what exists in God's mind as the basis of that order. But what is really important to Berkeley, you see, is not the leap from your idea to something else, for example, an idea in God's mind. Some people think that that leap has made Berkeley just as vulnerable as the materialist ever was to the skeptical argument. But the important thing for Berkeley is that what he postulates is something mind-dependent, and it's also, he claims, more intelligible, because it's totally unintelligible, as Locke admitted, to us, as to how matter should act on mind. But he doesn't have that problem, because God's activity is something which is fundamentally unintelligible. In fact, it's the only kind of genuine causality there is in the universe, is the activity of a spirit, whether ourselves or God, for Berkeley.
I think there's much more to be said for Berkeley than we're making it sound. I mean, this insistence that all that the objects of our knowledge can possibly ever be is the data of experience, and experience alone, came long after Berkeley's death to be one of the orthodoxies of science. And in fact, Karl Popper has written a famous article called A Note on Berkeley as a Precursor of Mach and Einstein,
yes,
in which he extracts 21 theses from Berkeley's work,
Yes.
which he then shows have been put forward by modern physicists like Einstein under the impression that they were saying something new and revolutionary. I think there is a lot more to be said for Berkeley than one can easily be inclined to allow.
Well, it's perfectly true that there is a powerful argument for the view that our concept of anything must, in the end, come back to our experience of that sort of thing, however indirect. And that argument has been very powerful. Now, of course, this, in a way, is Locke's argument too. But Locke wants to say that doesn't mean to say that there isn't something with its own independent nature out there. And Berkeley just wanted to sort of chop that off and deny that. I mean, for Berkeley, the world is not a mysterious place. He's a dogmatic philosopher. It's for us, in his terms, a rather surprising place because there's no material world in the sense in which most people think of it. But it's not a mysterious place for Berkeley, whereas for Locke, you see, he's prepared to accept that there is something mysterious there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ayers.